Welcome to the Meeple Bunker, everyone. Today I've got a review of the solitaire game Deep Space D-6 by Tony Go as the designer and Tau Leader Games as the publisher. This is a dice rolling worker placement game for, as I said, one person. And it was kickstarted in 2015 and actually delivered in 2015. This is the Kickstarter version. The only difference you'll see between the normal Kickstarter versions and I believe the version that you'll be able to get from the website is this sleeve that comes on the box. So not really much of a change there. There was also the ability to get metal dice with this game during the Kickstarter, and I did not get metal dice, so you'll see basically all the retail components here. So let's go ahead and crack it open, get it to the table, and I'll tell you my review of Deep Space D6. This is the basic setup for a game of Deep Space D6, but before we get around to that, I just want to give a shout out to the components. This is a Kickstarter game, but it really feels like a full-fledged retail game. First of all, the box, which was made to look like one of those old style choose-your-own-adventure games, has a magnetic flap closure. So, something I always love in a game. The box has enough for all the components. Also included in the game were not one ship, which you see here, but there were 4 separate ships, and every single ship, which has this little fold-out board here, which you can choose to use in the game, every single one of these ships has different abilities and has different things for the different crew to do when you place them on here. So you can play this 4 different times and get 4 completely different experiences if you just choose the different ships. The one I'm showing you here is the Halcyon. The Halcyon is really kind of a starter ship. It has all the basic actions that you can take with your crew. So let's start with that. A game of Deep Space D6 basically has 6 phases to each round. The first one is you roll all the available crew dice. And these are the crew dice here. So you start off with these 6 crew dice. And as you can see, these are nice dice. These are also engraved dice that are painted. So these are not printed dice. These are really good quality dice. So the first thing you do is, for this game, you would roll the 6 dice. Okay, so we have the 6 dice here. So let's talk about what these dice do. The first thing you do is scan for threats. You have 3 scanner positions located up along here. If you fill up these 3 scanner positions, a threat comes out. That's what this means, a threat card, and these are the threat cards. A threat comes out to your ship. So let's take a look. How do you know if you scanned a threat? Well, if one of your dice ends up like this, with this symbol, which matches the symbol at the top, that means basically you've scanned a threat. So we're going to put that up there, and that basically locks that dice in place, unless you use some of your crew actions to get it off there, or some other effect takes it off. Once you fill this up with 3 of those dice, all those dice come off and go to your return section, which is in here in your infirmary. They come off there, and what happens is a threat card gets revealed on your turn. Okay, so let's talk about the other dice that we have here. This dice is one of basically your medical dice. You put that here on this particular ship. It returns all units from the infirmary, or returns a basically scan card, or a scan dice. So if you have scan dice up here, you could actually take this off, put it in the return. It's still locked for the rest of this round, but you'll be able to gather that at the end of your phase and use it. Second thing you would do is basically, and you resolve these things as you go when you assign crew. Another one that you have here is basically I believe weapons or tactical. If you put that here, you're going to do fire lasers. Now the more dice you assign to this particular one, the more damage that you're going to do. When you assign 1, it does 1 damage. If you assign another one, it adds +2 to that, so you can get 3 damage on something for 1 die. And that'll become important when you start revealing things from the threat deck over here. So that would be this particular one, and you resolve the effects immediately. This one is basically a science officer result. If you assign it to this particular one, you can either recharge your shields. So this is the shield track over here. All damage from threats go to your shields first, and then start going to your hull. The hull is basically this here. If your hull is reduced to 0 at any point in the game, you lose the game. But first you start taking shields. The good thing about shields is they can be recharged, so they start taking damage first. Well, you can recharge shields fully, so even if you were at 0 here, you recharge them fully up to the 4 level, or you can use a stasis beam. So if there was a threat detected over here, basically you would put this dice on top of that for this round, and when you get to the activation phase for the threats, that particular threat would do nothing this round if it was activated. We'll get to that in a second. So we'll put that there. These other two are also medical dice, but let's take a look at the other actions we have. So let's just flip these here. This is a command die. So this is the command symbol. The command symbol goes up here, and on this particular ship, it allows you to take any die that you have not already assigned, turn it to any other face for use. So let's say I put that there, and I change this die to the two gear symbols here, which is basically the engineering die. I can put this on the engineering section, and I can repair one of the hull. So let's say my hull was at 7, I could push it up to an 8. Now if I had multiple of these and assigned multiples, well, this would be 1, and then you would add 2 more, so you'd be able to repair 3. So if I was all the way down at 4, I'd go back up to a 7. If I was at 5, I'd go fully back up charge to 8. So those are the different crew actions that you can do. So there's 6 sides to the dice, there are 5 different crew, and then of course the scanned thing here, so the scan threat detected. So let's just leave that up there. Okay, so what's the next phase? Well, the next phase is after you've assigned all your crew, resolved all that, you would turn over a threat. So there's 2 types of threats. Let's turn over 2 here and show you the 2 different types. This one are what they call internal threats. These go on the left side of the board here. These are external threats, and you can tell by the symbol that they have here. An internal threat has nothing in the square symbol. External threat has this, and this number basically tells you how much health this particular card has, and where it goes along this track on the right hand side of the board. This one would go down in the 1 threat, and what that means is, let's say that this was already out, and I had assigned this guy to fire. He does 1 damage. I could choose this guy and immediately remove him from the threat pile. But I've already assigned this. He just came out. And that would be all the threats we have. So let's say we have those 2 threats. What happens next? Threat phase. Threat phase is you take the threat die here, which is basically just a 6-sided die with 1 through 6 pips in it, and you roll it. This one rolls as a 5. So how do you resolve that? Well, the first thing you do is you start from left, top to bottom, and then right, top to bottom. Left to right, top to bottom. And you resolve these. So first you would start with external threats and see if these are activated. This one over here is basically a general effect that says you may not assign basically engineering crews. The way you resolve this is during your dice assignment phase, if you put a medical crewman on this ship, then you resolve that, and you can remove that, and then you can start assigning these as normal. But if I leave that there for now, I can't assign any medical or any engineering crew out into my thing. So if I roll them, they're basically useless unless I have a command crewman to change those. Okay, then you get over here to the threat pile. Well, I rolled a 5, so I don't activate any of the threats. The numbers that activate a threat are listed here. So a 2 or a 4 roll would activate this one. Well, let's say that I did roll a 2. What would happen? Well, I rolled 2, -1 to the hull. Well, I still have shields, so what happens is that damage goes to my shields, so my shields go down by 1. And that is the end of the threat phase. Now we proceed to the final phase in the turn, which is gather crew. So for gather crew, what I do is I take all of the crewmen that I have assigned, and I return them in my hand. I do this, I leave everything where it is, and that's it. I do not return this threat detected die or the scan die to my hand. That remains there. And like I said, it remains there either till this track fills up or until I do something to return those dice to my hand. So these are my return dice. Now sometimes you'll use a die on a particular item and then you might destroy that. Well, that die, let's say that I had put a stasis beam on there, and then let's say I had fired on him in the next round. Let's say this is the next round. Stasis beam, but then I also fired on him for some reason. I'd remove him. Well, this guy doesn't go back to my hand. He goes into the return pile. I can't use him until the next round. There are also 2 sides to this basically return/infirmary card. Sometimes dice go in the infirmary. If they go in the infirmary, they don't return to your hand at the end of the round. They continue to remain in there until you use a medical crewman or medical die to return that person to your hand. So you can start losing dice and not being able to roll things pretty quick if things get out of hand. Well, there's this opposite side of this, which reads a little bit differently. And it says, during the assigned phase, you may send a unit to the infirmary to change another available unit to any phase. So this one gives you a little bit more flexibility. So basically, you can send somebody to the infirmary if they have this particular symbol, and that would allow you to, let's say, change this die. It basically doubles your ability to do things like what the command crew dice does for you. That may be important because you may not roll any command dice and you may be kind of out of options. But if you have a infirmary, or if you have a medical crewman rolled, you can use that as well. So that basically gives you more options during a turn. Okay, well, let's speed this up a little bit. Let's bring out some more threats and pretend like we're later in the game. Okay, here's an example of a very late stage in the game. In the game, you win by basically going through the entire threat deck. So we're going to say that we've gone through all these cards in the threat deck, and all we have remaining are the visible threats here. So this could be potentially our last round, depending on how well we do. At this point, I've taken quite a bit of damage to my shields, quite a bit of damage to my hull, and I have 2 dies locked in here in the threat phase. So let's do an example phase here towards the end, see if we can get through these last cards, see if we win this round, or go to the next one. Okay, so I rolled the dice, which is the first thing I do, scan for threats. Oh, geez. So I rolled a scan indicator, so I do that. And what does that mean? Well, I filled up this entire track now, and that says reveal a new threat. Well, fortunately for me, the threat deck is empty, so I don't do that. And then I put these in the return pile. I cannot use those this turn. So what do I have left? Well, I have basically 3 die left. I'm going to first assign the fire lasers one. I'm going to then also assign, so I can use this to fire on one of these guys. So I'm going to take the fighter out, because he can activate on basically 2 different rolls, a 2 or a 4. Boom, so he's out of here. So he goes to the basically the completed threat pile. And now what I have left is I have an engineering, a repair hull, and then I have a command thing. So I can either repair my hull one point by doing this, move this track up a little bit, or what I can say is, well, you know, I'm going to take a chance, I'm not going to repair, and I'm going to do that, assign this, and then I'm going to go and change this to basically a tactical. And I'm going to basically be able to do, by adding a second one, I can do 2 additional damage. So I've got 2 ships here. Now which one should I take? I think I'm going to take the Nebula, because as you see, the Nebula basically activates on a roll of 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and it takes -1 health. When destroyed, my shields go online. So I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm going to go, and right now my shield should be offline, so let me remove that to 0. Any damage I take on this roll will go straight to my hull because of the Nebula. I'm basically flying through a Nebula. So I'm going to do 2 damage to that with my second die. Boom, boom. And he is done. So the only guy left here is the bounty ship, and he's down at health 2 already because I've done some damage to him. So now we move into the new threat phase. I would draw a new threat. There are no new threats left. So now I go into the threat phase. I roll a threat die. I see what happens. Rolled a 6. Nothing happens. Okay, let's do this again. Let's do the final round. Should be the final round. Take all 6 of my dice, including the return dice. I roll them. And what do I have? Well, right away I have a laser. I have another laser. So let's do that. Boom. Destroyed. And in this basic kind of beginner's version of the game, that means I've destroyed all the threats. I still have at least 1 point left in my hull. My ship's undestroyed. And I win. So that's the end of the game. Now, I've played this game many times, and I haven't won probably about 50% of the time or so. So dice rolling luck does come into play in this game, but there are mitigating factors, like you can use the command die to change die. And then with the what they call the alternate side, this is the normal side of the infirmary / return card. With the alternate side, where you can basically commit guys to the infirmary, which means you can't use them in the subsequent round. But that allows you to, this round, change one of your dice to another face. That basically gives you more options. There's also a set of cards in here called the Ouroboros cards. They're kind of like a big boss battle card that come at the end. To me, they don't really seem very balanced. I'm not sure why, but it's very hard to beat them. I believe that they were kind of added late in the Kickstarter process. I can't really remember. But right now, I just play through the entire threat deck without the Ouroboros cards, which are normally come in, I believe, at the end of the round. And, well, that's basically it for Deep Space D6. So let me give you my thoughts. Okay, my final thoughts on Deep Space D6. Let me just say that I love this game. This is a great game. If you have even the slightest bit of interest in solitaire games, then I would say pick this up. This is by far top of the line when it comes to solitaire games. You would not know really that this is a Kickstarter game except for a few corners that might have been cut on some of the components. But otherwise, components here are top notch. You've got the translucent cubes for the tracking. You've got the custom etched and painted die. It comes with 4 boards, one for 4 different types of ships. The cards are the mini poker-sized cards. The art on those is a little sparse. That one doesn't have any art. Let's go to the next one. This one doesn't have really art, really. It shows you kind of an outline of a ship's hull on most of the threat cards, and that's kind of it. So there is that. This is done in a kind of a very basic art sense, but the cover art on the box here is beautiful. I mean, it looks like just like what they were going for. They have the spine here and everything. This looks just like the book that you probably would have checked out of your school library back in the day for the Choose Your Own Adventure games. I mean, they made some really good thematic choices on this. I really like this because this really is kind of like a dice rolling card pulling Choose Your Own Adventure game. The options on the infirmary / return card is really great. That you have 4 different ships that have almost 4 completely different styles of play to them. I only went through the Halcyon, the beginning ship here. But to have that is great. The different crewmen do different things on the different ships. This ship up over here has a bunch of drones that you can assign to it. This one over here is more alien in nature. This one has rockets and quantum cannons, so it can kind of do more damage. It's more like a battleship. Again, these are fantastic ships. They all have different strengths and weaknesses, different hull values, different shield values, and things like that. There really is nothing about this game that I really don't like. When I picked it up from Kickstarter, I believe it was $15. That is a steal for this game. You're getting top quality stuff. The only component that I really don't like, other than the quibbling bit about the art on the cards, is the shipboards, which are double-sided, which is a nice touch. And they give you basically a description of the ship and give you some gameplay notes on that ship. They give you a little bit of flavor text back here, which is a great addition to a game. A lot of people wouldn't have thought about that. But is that the boards themselves don't really want to lay flat, so they fold up and go in the box like this. Everything goes back inside the box, which is great. But then when you unfold them, you know, you have this kind of thing going on, so you have to kind of fold it the other way to get it lay flat. It would have been nice had these been, you know, cut like the kind of boards that you get out of a normal retail copy, but of a board game, hobby board game at least. But again, that's really one of the only negatives I can find about it. I think that you should go out and check this out. Go to the Tau Leader Games website and see if you can order this guy. It's well worth picking up. Like I say, if you like solitaire games at all, you're gonna like this. If you like games like Hostage Negotiator by Van Ryder Games, which is another great solitaire game that you guys should check out, this is right there with that. I mean, in fact, with the theme on this, I kind of like this better than Hostage Negotiator, and it's not nearly as brutal as Hostage Negotiator. Hostage Negotiator can be a real brutal game. Deep Space D6 is a tough game, but with the dice mitigation factors that you can play in here, it's not nearly as brutal. Again, in the end, this is a highly recommended game. This gets 2 thumbs up from me. It gets 10 points, and that's all I have to say about that. Meeple Bunker, out.